In this video, we are going to cover how to quickly drill down through carburetor and fuel system troubleshooting to make a call on a repair with high confidence. The first thing we need to do is apply some diagnostic procedures to help isolate the problem better. The first hypothetical situation is that we have an engine that is a crank no start condition. Attempt to start the engine, pull start it at least 4 times or crank it for at least 10 seconds if it's electric start. From there, remove a spark plug and note whether the electrode end is wet with fuel or if it's dry. This will give us instant direction where we need to go next. If it's wet with fuel, it's highly likely the fuel system is working good enough to at least get a response from the engine. Remember that an engine needs 3 elements to run: air and fuel, spark, and compression. If the fuel is present and it's not stale, one of the other 2 elements is left to check in regards to the no start concern. The next scenario where we can apply some diagnostics is identifying if there is a partial restriction within a carb or a fuel system that is the root cause for our performance issue. With the engine up and running, however, it requires choke application to keep it from hunting and surging or altogether stalling. The chances are good the carb has a restriction in a passageway. If the engine needs more than 75% choke application just to keep it running, it's likely you have a major restriction in fuel delivery. This could be a fuel flow issue to the carburetor, a plugged main jet, or a plugged idle circuit if it's equipped. If the engine only needs between 25 and 50% choke application to keep it running or from surging, it's likely a partial restriction somewhere in the carburetor, and we'll need to pay close attention to the jetting during the cleaning to ensure we solve the issue in one shot. Throttle modulation is a great diagnostic tool to help us narrow down which circuit in the carburetor is likely the root cause of the performance issue. While the engine is running, and as much choke as needed is applied to allow it to run, have the throttle set to full speed and run the engine at top no load, as we call it. This will get the engine up to temperature and stabilize the performance enough for the next step. Slowly bring the throttle lever down to the idle speed and note how the engine runs. Does it seem to run okay, or is it now seemingly rich? Take and move the choke towards the open position slowly, again paying close attention to how the engine is sounding. If you can get the choke all the way to the full open position, the problem with the carburetor is likely not in the idle circuit. It's proven this to us because it runs good and does not need extra fuel at idle to work correctly. By default, the high-speed circuit is where we would turn our attention to during the cleaning process. We cannot load the engine enough to get it fully on the high-speed circuit, so instead we isolate the engine to run only on the idle circuit to identify our direction. Remember this important detail that both the idle and the high-speed circuits work together to deliver the total amount of fuel during engine operation conditions above idle. If one circuit is impaired, the engine will be lean as a result, especially at top no load. Isolating the carburetor and governor systems to help identify the root cause of a surging engine can be performed as a diagnostic procedure. With the engine running and hunting and surging, simply locate the governor linkage or the governor arm. It will be moving back and forth in accordance to the surging. Apply light pressure to hold the system still the best you can. You will be fighting some force from the governor system. While holding the system still, take note of how the engine runs. Does the engine smooth out and run really well? If so, the problem may be with the governor system, like a missing or broken anti-slop spring on the linkage, a worn or missing pivot bushing for the linkage, or some other type of physical damage. If the engine runs poorly yet and stalls, then the problem is in fact fuel system related, and your investigation should turn in that direction. The last topic to cover is verifying adequate fuel flow to the carburetor before removing it for service. If you have determined the carburetor is the root cause of a performance issue, there is one easy check to perform while removing the fuel line to the carburetor. Obviously ensure the fuel tank has an adequate amount of fuel in the tank for this test. Simply pinch off the fuel line with dedicated hose crimps and remove the fuel line from the carb. Now, with the system fully intact and the gas cap on the tank, remove the fuel line crimp tool and let the fuel flow from the line into an approved container and verify it's coming out the whole inside diameter of the hose and let it flow for at least 10 seconds. If the fuel barely trickles out, this would indicate there is a restriction upstream. Either the fuel line itself is failing internally, there's a plugged fuel filter or screen in the tank, or improper tank venting could be at fault. Doing this test every time will save you the potential wasted effort and also allows you to verify that the fuel condition is well at the same time.